ॐ जननीं शारदां देवीं रामकृष्णं जगद्गुरुं पादपद्मे तयो श्रित्वा प्रणमामि मुहुर्मुहुः. So we were discussing the conversation dated 18th September 1913, which took place in Jairam Bati. Before that, we just discussed what Siram Krishna or what Holy Mother used to say. She used to quote Sri Ramakrishna and say that the pains which result in holding on to the ego, that was very graphically explained through a unique example. I don't think there is any reference of this in the scriptures, but Sri Ramakrishna so nicely explains what are the problems that ego causes in the life of an individual. So he says it is the ego, the feeling of I and mine, that is ignorance. And the role of the Guru or the role of God, you know that there is God's grace on a particular person, on a devotee or a disciple. When his ego, the strong feeling of I and mine becomes less and less. And it doesn't happen. Sri Ramakrishna admits, as Holy Mother says here, he gets lot of blows in life and through experience only learns his lessons and then attains knowledge. So it is a process which begins with some kind of experience, not necessarily pleasant or in fact painful, because only then the spirit of ego gets a battering. So to explain it very graphically, Sri Ramakrishna uses this example just to show. If he gives a very simple example, people will not take it seriously. So he says, see the pain which a calf starts his life, the calf is born and then it grows. And then Sri Ramakrishna says, how much does it suffer? When it grows, it makes the sound of hamba, hamba. Hamba, hamba in Bengali, it means me, me. So Sri Ramakrishna is trying to say that even animals give us these wonderful lessons on how to reduce the ego or how to deal with our ego and how difficult it is to get rid of ego. Just to show that it may be easy to say, but it is very difficult to get rid of ego. So that Sri Ramakrishna is explaining through this beautiful parable. He says the calf starts its life by saying amba, hamba, amba. That means that sound actually means in Bengali that me, mine, mine. Aham, that word is referred to here. So when it says that, its suffering begins. How? The calf grows and then it is made to work in the fields and toil throughout the day. Maybe it gets a little food, but still it is made to toil. So at the end of the toil, perhaps we may feel that as we in old age we will be happy and will relax and the problems will go away. But that doesn't happen. Even in the old cow, Sri Ramakrishna says, even if it dies, after death also there is no release. That ego is so deeply ingrained in that personality that even after the cow dies, the poor cow, they skin that cow and use the leather to make chappal, and people walk on it using that. So the shoes and the other things which are made out of leather. So there's no end to the cow's sufferings. When it is alive, people will make it work very hard. If it is a cow, if it's a bullock, it will work in the fields. and the cow will be milked and it will be uh, given a lot of pain. The milk will not be available for the young one. Most of the milk is taken away by people. So, but still it goes on saying Amba, Amba, and then after death, Sri Ramakrishna says that even then it is not delivered, because it's in the sense it's the pain still continues, because people even take the skin out and make chappal, and it is trampled day and night. We are trampling, we are using those shoes or the slip or chappals and walking on that. Then it says even the entrails, that is the intestine, they say the intestine makes is used for making drums. Sometimes the skin of the is made of drum, and then he says people beat it day and night. Even the skin of the cow is beaten. They beat it, and the suffering doesn't end. And from the entrails, some carder, they cards the cotton. So for that, even then, only when the carder makes the sound, when he cards the cotton, the tuhu tuhu sound comes. That means not me but you, not me but God. So till that time, the suffering ends only when he finally says, not me, not me. So then comes the sound tuhu tuhu. So at the end of all the struggles in life, after uh, suffering a lot of pain and all the struggles, and still the person or the still human beings don't give up this me and mine. And Sri Ramakrishna says only when everything is lost and finally even the intestines are used to make the carder's thread with which he cards the cotton. The cotton is made into thread. So at that time when he says to, finally the cow is released from its pain. So we completed that, and then we come to a new conversation on 18 September 1913, where Holy Mother is answering a letter. Of course, she did not write herself. Some of the sevaks, like Ras Bihari Maharaj, was writing answers. So they would read the questions to Holy Mother, and Holy Mother would give instructions and they would reply. In the course of a letter to a devotee, the mother wrote in the sense asked Ras Bihari Maharaj to write. She writes because maybe the disciple had complained of many things that were not going right in his life. Or then she write to him, there is no happiness whatsoever in human birth. So it's a very pessimistic statement. Apparently, it appears to be a very pessimistic statement. But Holy Mother asks the disciple to write. Holy Mother writes, the reply to the letter is given in this way. She says, there is no happiness whatsoever in human birth. The world is verily filled with misery. Happiness, whatever little happiness you find here, is only a name. So, Siram, he says, on whom the grace of the master has fallen. However, she doesn't end with on a pessimistic note. Though she begins that the basic substance of the world is pain giving. So there's a lot of suffering in this world, but there is a hope, there is some consolation. Those on whom the grace of the Master has fallen alone knows him to be God himself, and that is their solace. And remember, that is the only happiness. Now, what does this mean? Because we run after things which give us temporary pleasure, so naturally it will be followed by pain. But when we get something which is eternal, which is which there is no risk of being snatched away from us, that eternal existence, Sat, that eternal consciousness, which we will never lose, whatever be the state of our mind, and that eternal happiness or joy, Sat, Chit, and Ananda. So that is the nature of Brahman or God himself. So if we somehow, by the grace of the Master, we recognize that those infinite qualities in Sri Ramakrishna, and attach our minds to Him, that alone will give us happiness. Remember, that is the only happiness. So, this is a very important statement which Holy Mother makes and gives a universal solution to all the problems of life. That is why she said the easiest and the best way to solve all the problems of life, not only a few problems, but all the problems, is to remember or take the name of Sri Ramakrishna in silence. So, what does it mean? The more we read in Rajoga, we saw in Rajoga yesterday that when every thought creates a channel in our brain, every thought, whether it is voluntary or involuntary, it creates, Swamiji says in Rajoga, that it is like walking on a forest path. There's a lot of grass, but there are certain pathways which you see because a lot of people have walked on that path. And then there is a tendency for other people to walk on that path. Now, this taking this example, Swami Vivekananda said yesterday in his Rajoga class that every thought that we think, every prayer, every japa that we do creates a channel in our brain. So that channel is created in the chitta, the mind stuff, which is one of the four parts of the mind. So that gives rise to thoughts. We sometimes do not realize the source of our thoughts. Why do depressive thoughts come? Why do painful thoughts come? We are apparently not in pain. It's the memory of the past or anxiety or worry about the future that gives us these thoughts. And then we wonder from where are these thoughts coming? So Swamiji scientifically says the thoughts do not come randomly. They come because of the samskaras, because of the grooves that have been created. When a gramophone record earlier, there were gramophone records where there was a pin and that used to turn the record used to plate used to turn on a machine, and then the pin will play the sound. It will reproduce the sound. Those old type record players, if we have seen, so they have to pass through the groove. Only when they pass through, they cannot pass through any groove. They have to go round and round and round. It has to pass, and then a particular music is the result. The music is because of the irregular grooves. That the grooves give rise to the music. Whatever music is inscribed on that wax plate, so or some kind of fiber plate. So that is how Swami Vivekananda says our brain also, because of repeated practice of japa or prayers, it has created channels. So when there is, say, a disturbing thought, it will not, the disturbance will not continue for long. It will immediately follow the channel with which we are very familiar. And that channel, if it is the channel which takes us or which reminds us of God, then we get peace of mind, even in the midst of pain. But unfortunately, if we have been thinking over and over again about certain things of the past or certain things in the future, these anxieties, they are creating these grooves in our chitta, mind stuff. And whenever there is some kind of reaction, there is a tendency for the mind to take to these old paths. And to prevent that from happening, Swamiji says in his Raj Yoga, yesterday we discussed that in great detail, we have to erase the old paths and create new pathways, the pathways of the grace of God, the remembrance of God, the remembrance of Sat, Chit and Ananda, which will give us a sense of eternal existence, eternal consciousness, knowledge and eternal bliss. If those are the qualities of God which we have superimposed on our Ishta, then those thoughts will be whenever there is a thought of unhappiness, we think the blissful Lord is with us, and the new channel will make us even full of joy or give us joy even in under those circumstances, because the old channels have vanished. They have become flat because we have not thought bad things or negative things. So all the positive things have accumulated, and no matter what inspiration or maybe what stimulation is there from the outside world. No matter what kind of suffering is imposed on a person, he has a tendency to follow those grooves of happiness, of Sri Ramakrishna, of the grace of the master, and all those things. So that is why Holy Mother says, in all other cases, there will be suffering because of past uh, channels or past pathways. We will go along those pathways. There may be change in circumstances, but every time we get pain, we try to recollect all the painful experiences of the past and imagine that this time also the experience I'm going to suffer. So the anxiety about the future and also the painful memories of the past, they create a sort of sensation where we experience pain. And the only solution, according to Holy Mother, the only source of happiness is to create these new channels, which means she says in a different way that those on whom the grace of the master has fallen, they know him to be God himself, and they find their security, find their happiness, find their solace in thought of in his thought, in his presence, in thinking about his Leela. So the mind is always in a elevated state. So that is what Holy Mother says, that the experiences of the world, because of its very nature, are painful. So to get painless or happy, uh, to come to get real happiness in life, means aligning our mind or our chitta to those pathways which give us joy, which gave us joy in the past and which will give us joy in the present and also in the future. Because those pathways of remembrance of God, prayer to God, japa, the repetition of the name, they are just nothing but to create habits, habits of peace, habits of joy, or habits of some kind of security or safety. So that is what happens when the grace of Sri Ram Krishna or the master, when it falls on a person, this is what happens. So now the conversation continues, and a sannyasin disciple of Holy Mother had gone to Rishikesh and he visited Jairam Bhatti. He had, before leaving for Rishikesh, he had come to Jairam Bhatti to visit the Holy Mother. On the way, after a few days, he reached Rishikesh and then wrote a letter to Holy Mother, saying, Mother, once you remarked that I would get the vision of Master in course of time, but that has not happened as yet. So when Holy Mother, this was a letter he wrote from there, and in reply, Holy Mother writes to him, Mother, at once, Mother, once you remarked that I would get the vision of the Master in course of time, but that has not happened. So hearing the contents of the letter, the mother said to the disciple, write to him, Sri Krishna has not gone to Rishikesh for your sake simply because you are there. You may go wherever you like, and you can't expect the Ishta to go with you just because you are there. And moreover, he says he has become a sannyasin. He should not have a choice of place or time or situation. That itself is the meaning of sannyasa. What else is he to do but call upon God? He has gone to Rishikesh of his own accord. Nobody asked him to go. He could have stayed here, but like a foolish person, he went there, thinking that God is there. But if God is not here, he will not be there. That is what Holy Mother is explaining to her disciple Rajbihari Maharaj to come to be conveyed to that sannyasin who thinks just because you go to Rishikesh, just because you have escaped the troubles here, that doesn't mean you will go and enjoy the vision of God. You cannot demand that you should have his vision or you should have peace. You have to struggle. What else is he to do? Because that is the meaning of sannyasa, that one has no choice. If one has a choice, then one is a householder. He can do whatever he likes. He can uh, choose, or maybe, but for a sannyas in the path is that you have to just be happy with the status quo. Wherever you are asked to go or wherever you are, You just call upon God and wait and watch. There is no other way. So he says he will reveal himself. He means Sri Ramakrishna will reveal himself. Just write to him that he will reveal himself to the devotee when it is his sweet will. So you can't force your will on the master. That is what she wants to convey to that disciple. Just because you have gone to Rishikesh, do you think Thakur will follow you there and bless you with his vision? That is not going to happen. Whether you go to Rishikesh or whether you remain here, that's not going to make any difference. So now, then a poor man, a young man who was placed in very poor circumstances, was trying to get diksha or initiation. So this is how the guru power or the power of a guru was manifest in the life of Holy Mother. You see, Sri Ramakrishna himself used to be very selective when he selected disciples. But Holy Mother never saw the merit and demerit of a person. She just gave initiation. So that is why Sri Ramakrishna had to tell her that you have to do much more than what I have done. I have done nothing. I have done very little. What he meant to say was that I have chosen my disciples, people who were born great. So there's not much merit in initiating them. People like Vivekananda, no doubt by initiating them, Sri Ramakrishna has not done anything great. But to initiate anybody and everybody was the prerogative of Holy Mother. And that is what she did throughout her life. Even the disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, like Brahmananda, was the president. Many times, if they found that a person is not fit and he goes on insisting that he wants initiation, they used to, if they are if they had doubts, they used to send them to Holy Mother. And then Premananji used to say that, see, we don't have the capacity to digest these disciples, and Holy Mother is accepting them in. So many people used to go and get initiation. But sometimes, even Holy Mother's grace did not fall upon a few people. That is very rare. But here was a young man. He was placed in very poor circumstances. So naturally, perhaps we do not know what his intention was. Maybe his intention was to somehow get a mantra and see if there is a change in the destiny. That is what people normally expect. They go to the guru thinking that this the taking of initiation or maybe getting the mantra and repeating him may solve some of their problems. So this person perhaps was placed, since he was placed in very poor circumstances, knowing of no other solution to get rid of his poverty or suffering, had come twice or thrice for initiation. Some people are very eager to get spiritual experience, spiritual knowledge, or get rid of suffering. That is a different issue. But here, perhaps he had some ulterior motive. And that is why, with all his earnestness, somehow he could not get initiation. Now, see what happened. Normally, Holy Mother would not refuse, even if she knew that these people have other motives for taking Diksha. So he had come twice or thrice, but could not unfortunately succeed owing to the Holy Mother's illness. So somehow, whenever he came, he used to fall ill. So if one is not destined, one will not get initiation. And this we'll see in Raja Maharaj's life. He was so truthful that if he did not want to initiate somebody, knowing the background of that person, he used to somehow, he did not have the heart to say that, oh no, you are not fit, you would just go away. He simply used to say, I am not feeling well, so I can't initiate you. And because he was a man wedded to truth, he really used to fall ill. He used to develop some fever. This was observed in the life of, he would rather fall ill and give an excuse not to initiate certain people. Such people used to go to Holy Mother. Even the such people, Mother used to initiate. But here, this person would have had very bad karma. Otherwise, 3 times he comes, And every time he comes, Holy Mother was sick. And then he wrote a letter. Ultimately, after 2-3 attempts, he wrote, I am coming, please don't refuse me anymore. It is with great difficulty that I go over there. I want to know whether the next time I come, I shall get initiation or not. So, on one side, he is very keen, but his patience is running out and he wants to know whether he will get initiation. So, through a letter, he just wants to be safe because he has to spend money and come all the way and then only to be refused. Because when Holy Mother is to fall ill, obviously she cannot give initiation because she has to take a bath in the Ganges, and there are many things which she cannot do if she is sick. So in reply, Holy Mother said to the disciple, you write like this: a person, whoever he may be, must go back if I am not well. Even if I am well, I cannot invite people for initiation. People get facilities and opportunities according to their past karma. A person comes here several times but does not get an opportunity to see me, either because I am ill for some or for some other reason. It is his bad karma or that is responsible for that. What can I do? You may say that it means a great deal of expense for him, and everybody does not have money. I understand that. But a guru may turn away a person seeking to be a disciple time after time. He who is really eager for the blessing of the guru, however, will come to him even by begging. And the ultimate truth is this: he who is really anxious to cross the ocean of the world will not give excuses. He will somehow break his bonds. No one can entangle him. Financial difficulties, awaiting for a reply, fear of going back with unfulfilled desires, these are mere excuses. So here mother is very firm. Normally she is very kind and liberal, but here perhaps she is seeing through the this particular disciple's mind. She can see very clearly that he has some other motive, or maybe his karma is like that. So even the most compassionate mother in some cases refuses to give initiation. And she says, but still, if one is really keen, then one will not give up. They will not plan so much. They will just keep trying, and whatever be the circumstances, and if they are lucky enough, they will get initiation. So next we come to the conversation where Holy Mother says, a woman has written a letter to Holy Mother. She writes, Mother, I am young in years. My father-in-law and mother-in-law do not allow me to go to you. How can I go against their will? This is a genuine question. And in those days, women had difficulty to even go alone, defying their dependents. But it is my desire to receive your blessing. I mean, she wanted initiation. Then the mother asked the disciple to write like this and said, write to her, child, you need not come here. Call on the Lord who pervades the entire universe. He will shower his blessings upon you. So under different circumstances, Holy Mother had different advices to give. Because in the previous case, she says excuses are, they are mere excuses. If he is really keen, he would have come. Money, financial difficulties, not waiting for a reply, awaiting a reply, fear of going back, coming twice or thrice and then going back without getting initiation. These are all excuses. But in this case, she knew this is a genuine problem, and this woman definitely defying her father-in-law and mother-in-law, it is very risky for her to come. So she asks, don't worry, just call on the Lord who will bless you at the right time. Now we come to another conversation which was which took place on 30th September 1918 in Udbodhan. So it was morning, Holy Mother was dressing fruits for worship. The disciple was reading to her a letter written by a devotee. He had written in such a strain that it seemed as if he was piqued with God. He was angry with God that God is not showering His grace upon me, as if it is God's fault. The Holy Mother was a bit firm in replying to this letter. And she said, write to him, write to her, write to him. The master used to say, sages like Shuka and Vyasa, Shukadeva, who was the who spoke the Bhagavata, and Vyasa, who wrote so many books, Mahabharata, Ramayana, and all. So sages like Shuka and Vyasa were at the most big ants. I mean, this has a reference to Sri Krishna's idea that God is like a vast mound of sugar, and no matter how big the ant is, at the most it can carry 1 grain or 2 grains at the most. That is the capacity. So the infinite qualities of God and the infinite power of God cannot be understood even by people like Shuka and Vyasa. At the most they are big ants, and this person wants to understand the Leela of God, and is complaining as if God is not favoring, as if God is his servant. So mother dictated the reply and said, Master used to say, sages like Shuka and Vyasa were at the most big ants. God has this infinite creation. If you do not pray to God, when he would have written the letter, perhaps that if he doesn't reply to me, if he doesn't shower his grace, then I'll not pray to him, as if he was doing a favor by praying to God. And mother is also angry on him, and she says, right, if you do not pray to God, what does it matter to him? There are many people who do not even think of God. If you do not call upon him, it is your misfortune. Such is the divine Maya that he has thus made people forget him. He feels they are quite all right. Let them be happy with their toys. So the disciple says, now the disciple is he has been asked to write this, but at the same time, his mind, he has started thinking himself. So he says, Mother, is it not that people do not want to see God? No, he says, it is not that people do not want to see God. Otherwise, why should such a question arise in their mind at all? I mean, this person is trying. Maybe he has not succeeded. So he is a little angry on God, but that doesn't mean he doesn't want to see God. He's hankering for a vision. So this disciple is asking Holy Mother this question. Otherwise, why would he write this letter, or why would he express? If he was not bothered, he would not even have written to you. So that's the question. The thing is that they are feeling greatly hurt that God, whom they like to feel as their very own, moves away from them and is not accessible to them. Buddha, Chaitanya, Jesus, and others like them did so much for their devotees in order to ensure their welfare. So here perhaps the disciple is hinting that because he does not see God, is angry with God for whatever reason, if he is dissatisfied, then it is the duty of great prophets like Buddha, Chaitanya, Jesus, and others. So in a way, he was pointing out to Mother, why don't you shower your grace upon him? Then Holy Mother agrees and says, yes, that was also the attitude of our master. Not that only Buddha, Chaitanya, and Jesus were compassionate. But she says, it is not possible for me always to recollect all these devotees. Then I say to the master, O Lord, please bless all, wherever they may be. I cannot remember everyone, and see, it is He who is doing everything. Otherwise, why should so many people come here? Then the disciple says, that is true indeed. It is rather easy for men to believe Kali, Durga, and other deities to be God. But is it an easy thing to accept a man as God? Then Holy Mother says, yes, that depends on His grace. So we discussed in the talk on Guru, some of you might have attended there. Sri Ramakrishna is giving that example where he says, how can one recognize? Because when we see a human form, all the limitations come. And he very nicely says, to a person who has jaundice, he sees everything yellow. The thing may not be yellow, but the object looks yellow for a person with jaundice. Similarly, if anybody worships any deity or even an object like Shivalinga or some idol or something and believes that it is God, then God's grace will fall upon him. But for that depends on his grace. A day later, after dictating this, a devotee arrived. The disciple said to the mother, Mother, it is this devotee who wrote to you that letter. I mean, the letter which says that why things are not happening. He was complaining. That person himself came. Then Holy Mother, because she saw him in person, she says, Is it so? Oh, I see he's a good boy. Then she said to the devotee, then she gives a much more uh, not logical but a wonderful explanation. She says, you see, it is the nature of the water to flow downwards. That is the niyam, that is the rule of Prakriti, that water always finds a lower level. It won't go from lower level to a higher level. It always flows, tries to maintain a level, it goes down. So, but only the sun's rays can lift it up towards the sky. So we need the heat or the energy of the sun to make the water flow in the opposite direction. Then take it to the clouds and then the rain comes. But when it rains, the tendency of the rain is not to go up but to come down. So also she says it is the nature of the mind to go to lower things, to objects of enjoyment, towards trivial things. But it's only the grace of God which acts like a sun can make the mind go towards higher object. So we see Sri Ramakrishna, Swami Vivekananda also once made a very interesting remark. He wrote a letter from the top of Mount Girnar when he had been to wandering in Gujarat. So he had to climb 10,000 steps to go on the top of Mount Girnar, where he got a cave and he stayed there in the cave for 3 days. 3 or 4 days he did tapasya in a very quiet place. But the Diwan of Junagadh, Haridas Desai, was a disciple of Swami Vivekananda, knew that it would be very difficult. There was no water and food there. So he sent a young boy, because young boys can easily run. They don't get tired. It's easily possible for them to run errands. So he sent some food, and thanking this Desai, Swamiji had something, I think some paper and pen there, or he got it from this boy. He writes a letter, and that letter was taken from the top of Girnar mountain to Haridas Desai, because Haridas Desai had asked him, how was the journey? How did you find the accent? How did you manage? Were you tired? And he must have inquired of his welfare. But Swamiji says, then of course he descends, and then I think when he comes to a lower spot, this boy meets him and he gives him the letter saying that I'll be here for a few more days more. But there he writes something very significant. He said the ascent was hard and the descent was much more easy, as it happens in life. It is difficult unless the sun creates heat, the water will not rise up. The tendency of the mind and tendency of the water is to go down. So it's always easy for a person who has made some progress to regress and come down. But it is difficult to build up and go against the current and make progress. So Holy Mother says, disciple says, that is true indeed. It is, oh no, then she says, then he says that it is very nature of mind to go to lower things, to objects of enjoyment, but the grace of God alone can make the mind go towards higher objects. So it was about 10:30 in the morning. A householder devotee arrived and saluted the mother. And then he asked the same question which hundreds of devotees had asked. They just want a vision of the master. They want to see Sri Ram Krishna. As we say in Hindi, Bhagwan ka darshan. But what is the meaning of darshan? What happens when one has a vision? These things were so, people think that if we suppose by some grace we have the darshan of Sri Ramakrishna, our problems will be solved. So, but is it so easy to have a real darshan? And moreover, all visions do not yield, are not signs of spirituality. It can just be an hallucination. So just asking for the sake of asking, oh, I don't see God, but do you really want to see God? That is the question. So that gentleman comes, that householder devotee. On one side, he is busy with his household and he just wants to God to come and give him darshan. So the mother gets a little upset, but still she consoles him by saying, continue to pray without losing heart. Everything will happen in time. How many cycles did Munis and Rishis of the old practice austerities so that they can have a vision? And you want to lead a householder's life and then expect to realize God. Do you believe you will attain to Him in a flash? If not in this life, you will attain to Him in the next. If not in the next, it will be after that. So she is not giving a false hope that you can't have God and mammon at the same time. And that's why she says, is it easy to realize God? But this time the master has shown an easy path, but only if you have faith. Therefore, it will be possible for most to realize God. After the devotee left, the mother said, in his presence, she did not say. You see, Swami Vivekananda and others were very, very frank. They used to just speak out their mind, but mother was very kind. She would coat it with some kind of sugar. She used to sugarcoat her words and tell him. Of course, she told him you cannot realize him. So that's why she said, if not in this life, in the next. But she knew even in the next life it will not be possible. So she says it will be after that. And then she says, is it so easy to realize God? But at the same time, she says, the master has shown an easy path. What is that path? That is more important. If he has got the hint, he would have understood it. Therefore, she says, it will be possible for all to realize God. Now, what does it mean? Will it be possible for people who are engrossed in worldliness to realize God? Now, the answer comes. Of course, she did not say it directly, but after the devotee left, the mother said, you see, he is so deeply engrossed in worldliness. He is the father of scores of children and still says, why? And still he says and asks me, why do I not see the master? Many women used to come to the master, to Sri Ramakrishna. They would say to him, why can't we concentrate our mind upon God? Because that is what you normally come and ask holy people. So they came because others are coming. So they also came. These women used to come and ask Sri Ramakrishna very casually, perhaps, why can't we concentrate our mind on God? Why can't we meditate? But Sri Ramakrishna was not like Holy Mother. He used to be a bit more frank and he used to sometimes use very harsh language. So these women, now of course, this is Holy Mother's, is quoting Sri Ramakrishna. She is not saying this herself. Perhaps she would say if somebody pestered her very much, but she is quoting Sri Ramakrishna and telling the disciple what the fact is. She says, if Sri Ramakrishna was asked this question, a lot of women used to come and ask the same question, why can't we see God? Then Sri Ramakrishna used to very frankly tell them, you still smell of the lying in room. So after the birth of a child, in those days there were a lot of children were born. Even before one, uh, in almost every year there used to be children. So there was so much of worldliness. Swamiji used to criticize that people are in a hurry to marry their children. Can they not wait? In those days, child marriage was also very common. And people used to, even before the father would earn enough money to support one child, there would be 2 or 3 children. So Sri Ramakrishna is trying to tell Holy Mother that you want to attain concentration. I still get the smell of the lying in room. Lying in room is where the child is delivered. So first get rid of that smell. The idea was first get rid of the desire to have more and more children. So why are you so worried about God realization now? Just forget it. Everything will happen in course of time. In this life we have met. In the next again we shall meet. You see how many conditions Thakur is putting now. And then you will attain to your goal. I mean, there's no guarantee that in the next you will have learned your lesson. You may perhaps come with lesser children, and then there will be lesser worldliness, and then perhaps in the next life you might get. But don't worry. Don't worry about seeing God now. It cannot happen. Everything will happen in course of time, of course, he says. But in this life we have met. So that also gives, Sri Ramakrishna also gives hope to them that whatever may be the problem, you have come here. That means in the next life, perhaps they would get some more vairagya. So in the next we shall again meet, but perhaps you would not, then you will attain to your goal. Then he says, it is easy to see a person as long as he lives in the body. I am now living here, so no one can see me. So one can see me by merely coming here. So here Mother is explaining that when the master was here, only few people who had the good fortune could see the master in his body, living in the body. So as long as the person is alive, you can see him. But once he goes, it is so difficult. How few have the fortune to see the master now with physical eyes? Vijay Krishna Goswami had seen the master at Dhaka after his passing away. That was a rare case. He says, how many people will have that opportunity? He felt his body. At that, the master said, that my soul goes out is not good. Perhaps this body will not last for many more days. Okay, this was an incident which happened when the master was alive. It was very, very rare that once this thing had happened in Girish's case. The master could not attend his Durga Puja and Girish was very much upset. He wanted to have the company of the master in his puja, and suddenly he sees Sri Ramakrishna is waving that chamar, and he could not believe his eyes that how can Sri Ramakrishna be here? He is in Dakshineshwar. He was in Calcutta, and then but he had an intense desire, so he could. So while Sri Ramakrishna was alive, a few times it has happened, and Mother is referring to this incident, that Vijay Krishna Goswami had seen the master in Dhaka. He touched him also, and then when he came back, he told this perhaps to the master, but the master told him, oh, that is not a good sign. My soul goes out. The soul, in the sense, the vision which he had, that out of body experience which Sri Ramakrishna had, that was an indication that he will not live more. And this body will not last for many more days. So, can you tell me who has seen God? Now, this is what Mother has quoted. What she means exactly is that there is another wonderful incident which is there in Mother's life when Kali Krishna Maharaj, Swami Virijananji, was the 5th president of our order, the first president who became the president after the direct disciples. After 4 direct disciples of Sri Ramakrishna, he was the first one who was a disciple of Holy Mother and became the 5th president of the order. He was the president for a long period of 15 years. So he once told told some reminiscences of Holy Mother. You see, he came as a young boy to Swami Ramakrishnananda to the monastery, and Ramakrishnananda tempted him by saying that, "Oh, you are a student, you are studying mathematics. I am very good at mathematics. I'll teach you." So literally, uh, Kali Krishna, as he was known, Virajanand used to be attracted by Shashi Maharaj, who used to teach him mathematics in his spare time. And that is how, as a young boy, he used to come and finally managed to join the monastery. He was the first one, other than the direct disciples, to come and live in the monastery, even when Swami Vivekananda was alive. So he once was very sad because in his area, Sri Krishna, in his lane where he lived, his parents were very devoted, his mother was very devoted. And when he was young, maybe he was 14 years old at that time, when the master visited his place many times, used to very frequently come in a carriage, uh, and he did not have the desire to see the master. In those days, he was not spiritually inclined. Only after master's Mahasamadhi, he got that inclination and took initiation from Holy Mother. So there was this, he was repenting in his mind. You see, how foolish of me. Sri Krishna himself came a few houses away from our house, which was also, they were also devotees. His father and mother had seen perhaps Sri Krishna, and they were definitely devotees. But somehow he did not feel like visiting them, or visiting Sri Krishna, or did not have his darshan. So he was feeling very sad. Even if once, if I had seen him, how lucky I would have been. And at that time, something very strange happened. Holy Mother could read his mind. And once he asked her that how unlucky that I could not see the master. She just smiled. Twice he asked. The third time, Holy Mother was asked by Virajanandji, "Hey mother, see how unfortunate. I sometimes feel I'm so unlucky that I could not see the master when I could see him, because I was uh, not very young at that time. I could have easily seen, it would have been a very good fortune." So when he told it for the third time, it seems Holy Mother just turned and saw him, just to tell him that, "Are you not seeing me? Is that not enough?" And immediately he could feel that it is Sri Krishna himself looking at him. So that is how he explains that it was possible for the Holy Mother. She was none other than the counterpart of Sri Krishna, and seeing her was as good as seeing Sri Krishna. So then she writes to that boy who wanted to know if he can see the master, and about the a lot of women who used to come. He used to openly say that this time it is not possible. Just try to reduce your worldliness, at least have less children, so that in the next life you are still smelling of that lying in room. So next time perhaps you will see me again. At least this time you had the fortune. So that is how Sri Krishna showered his grace upon these people. Then he says, Holy Mother says, continues this conversation and says, "Can you tell me who has seen God?" He made Naren attain to God realization. So he had the direct vision of Brahman. So she just wants to say that you don't think it is a commonplace occurrence. You need to do a lot of sacrifices. You have to be have so much of unworldliness in you to get that realization. He said Sukha was born. Vyasa and Shiva are like big ants at the most, and they had glimpses of him. One may see a vision in a dream, but to see God in a physical form is a matter of rare good fortune. So this Shukadeva, they say, was so unattached to the world that he was refusing to be born. Of course, it is, I don't know whether it is, it may be a story, but it shows that Shukadeva, he was born, he was the son of Vyasa. And when he was in the mother's womb, he was so disgusted that he did not want to come out. He did not want to be born. He said, "What's the fun? I just hate this world." So then he was born after many months. He was not born in a normal way. And then when he came, he was born, he was so unworldly that he just started walking away from his home and he became a monk. And that is how he wrote the Bhagavata. So, Shuka, Vyasa, and Shiva, they are like big ants. But to see God in physical form is a rare fortune. It is not so easy. But see, when somebody said they cannot meditate, she says you can have a vision if you meditate. And then they say we can't meditate. Our mind is not able to concentrate. Then excitedly, Holy Mother used to tell the disciple to write. Why can't one meditate if one has a pure mind? So purity is an essential condition. It is with the pure mind. If the mind is gross, then one cannot meditate because it will gravitate down. So he says, why can't one meditate if one has a pure mind? Why should one not be able to see God? When a pure soul performs japa, he feels as if the holy name is bubbling up spontaneously from within himself. He doesn't have to make an effort to repeat the name. And then she says, to attain this state, one should practice japa and meditation at regular times, giving up idleness. She says, while I was living at Dakshineshwar, I used to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and practice japa and meditation. One day, she says, I felt a little indisposed and left the bed rather late. The next day, I woke up still late through laziness. Gradually, I found that I did not feel inclined to get up early at all. Then I said to myself, at last I have fallen a victim to laziness. Thereupon, I began to force myself to get up early. Gradually, I regained my former habit. In such matters, one must keep up the practice of unyielding resolution. Austerities, worship, pilgrimage, and earning of money. One should do all these things. There is a quote which Holy Mother quotes. We have to do it in these days of youth. You see, even I had to visit so many places like Banaras, Vrindavan on my foot in my early years. But now you see, my flesh is weak. Now I need a palanquin even to go a few feet. I lean upon others. In old age, the body deteriorates. It does not possess any strength. The mind loses its vigor. Is it possible to do anything at that time? It is quite right that the young sannyasins of our mutt have been directing their mind to God from an early age. This is the right time for them to do so. And pointing to the disciple, she says, my child, whatever you want to do, practice all these things right now. Will these things be possible later on? Whatever you want to achieve, achieve now. This is the right time. Then the disciple says, very lucky are indeed those who receive your blessings now. Those who come later on cannot have this opportunity. So he thinks he is a privileged person. Then mother scolds him. He said, what do you mean? Do you mean to say that those who come later will not succeed? God exists always everywhere. The master is eternally present. They too will succeed through his grace. Are not people of other countries making spiritual progress? So we will conclude and then we'll continue in the next class. Let me see if there are some questions. Otherwise, wish you all a very happy Guru Purnima. Tomorrow also there is a session. Our Chicago Center is conducting a webinar on Guru. So different topics have been given. Sri Krishna and his ideas about Guru or Guru Tattva. I think Swami Nirmal Atmanindi of Brazil is going to speak on that topic. They have asked me to speak on the concept of Guru in the Upanishads. So if you are interested, I think they will send the link today also, but at least it will be definitely there on YouTube and Facebook Live. So in case you are not able to attend, most probably it will be on Zoom. If I get the link, it will be around 3:30 as we did today, the Scotland group. So please try to attend. And then of course our regular gospel class will be at 5:30 where Sri Krishna's ideas or Sri Ramakrishna's thoughts or sayings on the importance of Guru in spiritual life will be discussed. So I take your leave. Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. Just a minute, there is one question which has come just now. I'll try to answer this because it is connected to today's class. Somebody has asked, Maharaj, can you please explain again this saying of Holy Mother? He who has a pure mind sees everything pure. Everything depends on the mind. Obviously, there is nothing strange about this. As I said, if a person has jaundice, he will see everything yellow. If we are seeing impurity, Holy Mother says that impurity should exist in your mind, otherwise you will not see it. The example given is of a child. Now the child, if he is sitting, a very, very small child who doesn't know what a thief is, if he sees some strange person coming and asking him for certain things or taking away things from the house, he will not resist or he will not be afraid. He will just look at that person because he doesn't have the idea of thief in his mind. He doesn't know what a thief is. He doesn't know who is mine, what is mine and what is others. That ego has not come. I mean, ego is not very strong in the child. So if a person is pure, he sees purity everywhere. He doesn't see impurity. So that's why Swami Vivekananda says, whenever your mind becomes hypercritical, when you see faults, just think, pause for a moment and ask yourself, why am I seeing this impurity in others? Because that a little bit of that impurity is in me, otherwise I don't see it. So everything depends on the mind. When Mother said, that means if the mind is pure, it will see everything pure. If the mind is impure, they will see everything impure. So it is a very simple thing. The vibrations, as I said, of the mind, if they are pure, they will vibrate. They have a tendency to have a resonance with the pure vibrations in the universe. And if the mind has impure vibrations, gross vibrations, they will be attracted to the gross vibrations, the evil vibrations. So everything depends on the mind from that point of view. Since we are part of that universal cosmic mind, we will attract. That's why they say birds of the same feather flock together. So similar birds with similar tendencies, they will always move together. So that is how this is to be explained. Namaste.